Hello, how y'all doing? I'm going to talk about gluttony and overeating for the second time, okay? Uh, Overeating and gluttony, there's no such thing as a spirit of gluttony. There's no such thing. As long as I have been in the Christian community, I have never heard any preacher say, we're going to cast out a spirit of gluttony. Would you all like to come forth? I have never heard a preacher say that. What I've heard preachers saying is that they keep their body under subjection. They they only eat certain foods. They discipline themselves to have a small portion. They exercise. They go to the spa. That's what I have heard the preacher say. Not one time, whether I'm watching the church service by video or whether I'm at the church, not one time have I heard a preacher say, we're going to cast out a spirit of gluttony. Because that takes the responsibility off of us. There's nothing to cast out. Proverbs says to put a knife to your throat if you are a person given to appetite. Proverbs also says to beware of sweets because they are deceitful meat. They're deceitful food. I mean, they look good, the cakes look good, but they are not good for you. They're just not good for, they're deceitful. The Bible tells us to fast often, to turn the food away. If you're a person given to appetite, like I said, put a knife to your throat. What does that mean? That means do something desperate. I had to do something desperate. I had to give up beef, pork, egg yolks, most of the fish. I had to give up anything that has sugar in it. And I used to I used to drink 3 cappuccinos per week. And I like sweets because I ate sweets when I was young. I knew where the candy stores were because we were so hungry that we didn't eat real food like soup. We just, me and my sister, we used to go to that bakery and get a Dunkin', what do you call it, Dunkin' sticks for like 10 cents. That's how much they cost back then. You can be slim, eat the wrong food, and have a heart attack. You can do that. There was this prophet. Jesus told the prophet to tell this preacher that if he does not change his diet, he's going to have it's going to be consequences. So the preacher did not change his diet, and he died of a heart attack. So this gluttony and overeating is something that we have to control. We have to do it. We have to turn away food. We have to turn to count our portions. It is not a sin. It does not violate one of the 10 commandments. However, it could be under the category of covet. Thou shalt not covet your neighbors. Thou shalt not covet your neighbors, whatever they have. So it could be under that category of coveting food. It could be. I don't know. But as far as I know, it's not a sin. It's just something that we should not do. It's something that we have to control. That's what my understanding is. There are some anomalies in the human genome. There are some people who have a defect in certain type of genes, and it turns off the hunger reflex or turns on the hunger reflex. So therefore, they're constantly hungry, and so they constantly eat. There's the Prader-Willi syndrome. So there are anomalies in the human genome. Okay. And you know what? There's this one man who has to drink water all the time, gallons and gallons of water. It could be environmental. You could come from a family that overeats. Everybody overeats. Everybody has pasta and spaghetti every Friday. Okay. You could come from a family that overeats. In my case, there was never any food. There was never any food. From the time I was born to the time I left at 17, there was hardly any food in the house. So therefore, I was always hungry. So I carried that hunger reflex well into adulthood. The other problem in my case was extreme child abuse. I had a nervousness. So that nervousness carried on to food. If I got nervous, I ate food. It became a stress response. I get stressed, I go eat a brownie, I go eat cake, I eat something. I didn't particularly like all those heavy foods like lasagna, spaghetti. It's usually a sweet if I get stressed. Particularly if I'm associate with somebody I don't want to be associated with. If I was in a bad relationship with somebody I don't want to be in a relationship with, I mean, that would trigger a stress response. So look, if you are under any kind of counseling or psychiatric counseling, look, avoid the triggers. Negative people are triggers. Identify your triggers and avoid the triggers. Okay, now the way I decided to um, control my triggers and control people, first of all, I stopped hanging around people who I don't particularly like. I just stopped doing that. And that is an ongoing process that I'm still doing that, just staying away from people that I know I don't have any chemistry with, that I don't particularly like. That is an ongoing process. Um, the other thing, rather than eat a brownie or piece of cake, I exercise. Um, a decade ago, I was walking 2.5 miles a day, and but I've had some surgery, so I'm trying to get back to that, uh, at least once a week or something like that. But now I exercise. I exercise rather than think about the stress. Okay. My sugar level was up because I was eating granola bars. I thought that was a good snack, granola bars, so I used to buy them. However, they cause my sugar level to go up because they have corn syrup and sugar in them. That's why they're so delicious, okay? But I thought it was a nutritious snack, so I ate them. So I had to give up granola bars. I had to give up a lot of things, okay? I had to put a knife to my throat. I had to give up a lot of things, okay? Jealousy, okay? The Bible says, who can stand against envy? It's nothing you can do about envy. I'm going to admit, I'm not jealous of that. I'm not jealous of anybody's car. I'm not jealous of anybody's job. I'm not jealous of, that they have Gucci and I don't. I'm not jealous of that. So all these things you have to control. Anger. The Bible says this is that. Now that's an ongoing um, project for me, is to control anger. But the Bible says anger rests in the bosoms of fools. The Bible tells us to control our spirit. But God has anger. He has wrath, anger, the fury. So God has degrees of anger. And then most of the time, it has to do with the sinfulness of man. But he controls it. It's righteous indignation. Okay. But he does have degrees, in my opinion, of anger, greed. As it may be, gluttony has something to do with greed. You're greedy for food, so you keep eating it. But look, or you buy too much food at the grocery store than you need. Okay, the Bible says, I keep my body under subjection. That's in the New Testament. Paul says, I keep my body under subjection. I don't let my body tell me what to do. So that's how you come. And the other thing is that hardly anybody knows about health and nutrition. I spent 30 years studying health and nutrition. I know what foods to eat and so on. I try to exercise and so on. Most people don't understand health and nutrition. They don't understand what foods to eat and what foods not to eat. And I know obese people don't understand what foods not to eat. I know they don't know anything about what foods they should eat or what foods they should not eat. I know that. The 600-pounders know zero about food. That's the problem. You even slender people don't know anything about food. So, look, overall, we have to study food. What is the best food that we should eat? We have to learn to like rice, lentils, millet. And look, people who are obese, I've gone to churches. I've seen plenty of obese people. I've seen plenty of overweight people in church. And I've seen definitely on YouTube all kinds of obese pastors with BBLs, all kinds of obesity and all of that, because they're not keeping their body under subjection. I've seen that. So it's not, oh, gluttony is not a sin. It is something that we need to control to keep our body under subjection. But it doesn't mean you should be gluttonous. It does just because it's not a sin doesn't mean you should be gluttonous. It doesn't mean you should overeat. Okay, you keep your body under subjection. Study nutrition. Study health and nutrition. Get the books. I read a bunch of books, y'all, on health and nutrition. And I'm still reading some books on health and nutrition. And it's a lifetime issue. I mean, to me, it's a lifetime issue. You know what? It's a lifetime issue for Oprah. Oprah wrote a book called "Make the Connection." She lost the weight, went on a marathon and so on, but yet she's still dealing with it. She's still taking all kinds of Ozempic and GLP-1 and all that. She still hasn't got a hold of it. What is causing her to overeat? I personally think it was abuse in her childhood and so on that she hasn't come to grips with. But like I said, child abuse is a lifetime healing process. The reasons why you're overeating, it could be abuse in your young childhood, something like that. It could be that. Um, but overall, I do suggest that you find that you study health and nutrition and get on the walking program for starters and give up sugar. Have a nice day.